Hello, everybody. My name is Ben Cohen-Vigdor. I'm an 8th grader in Montclair. And I've had a flip phone for around 14 months. And I originally got a flip phone because I felt that I had a kind of very toxic addiction to social media, mostly Instagram. And I really felt it was sucking a lot of time out of my day that I could have used more productively. And I also felt that it was very much breaching my privacy. Like I would notice when I was talking to a friend about something, like 2 minutes later, that same thing would pop up on my feed, which is very scary to me. And I'm still going strong with the flip phone. And that experience is why I'm so pleased to be here today with former Congressman Malinowski and Mikie Sherrill, my own personal hometown congresswoman and candidate for governor. With all the chaos going on in Washington right now and the big tech CEOs all bowing down to Trump, we're going to need good leaders in New Jersey to take action. So I'm really excited to see Mikie putting out a very comprehensive plan to protect kids online and strengthen our democracy. And she is, in fact, the first New Jersey candidate for governor to put forward a policy plan on this important issue, which is awesome. And I know that Mikie gets how important privacy and security is for kids like me, because she has 4 kids of her own.
Can you hear him, Tom?
Yeah. And so I'm really, really looking forward to this discussion because, like I said, she has 4 kids of her own and she can really put forth a lot of very interesting perspective on these topics. And it is my honor to introduce former Congressman Tom Malinowski, who has also been a very vocal leader and champion on this topic.
Wow, thank you so much, Ben. Thank you for being a leader on this issue. And I got to say, I feel a little bit guilty listening to you because you've done way more than I have to wean yourself off the addiction and to try to make your daily life a little bit more healthy. So I don't know if I can go quite as far as you have, but I'm really proud of you for having the vision and discipline to take those steps. I hope other kids learn from your example. Look, we're not going to talk today about the news of the day. We're not going to talk about the tariffs. We're not going to talk about Musk and dismantling the government and all of the stuff that is making us anxious every single day. Although we have to address those issues, unfortunately. What we're going to do is take a step back and address some of the reasons why we are in this mess and what we can do about them. And one of those reasons, I think pretty obviously, is what's happened to our information system, how Americans, all of us, right, left, Democrats, Republicans, kids, adults, how we learn about politics in the world around us, where we now have, instead of everybody reading the same newspapers and watching the same news shows on TV, we now have these social media algorithms that are amplifying the most fearful and hateful and often dishonest content every single day just to keep our attention. So these tech billionaires can make a lot of money. And, if you think about some of the stuff that's happening today and how not just wrong, but how ridiculous it is, proposing to invade Greenland and pardoning people who rioted at the Capitol and attacked cops, and going all the way back to claiming that Trump won the 2020 election, and tens of millions of people believing this nonsense, or even saying today that China is going to pay for all the tariffs. It's against us, American consumers. None of this stuff would have passed muster 20 years ago. None of it would have been believed. All of it would have been just laughed out of the park. And yet today, these lies are dominating our politics. And at the same time, the same systems that are doing this to our politics, to our democracy, are also hurting our kids. Because if you're a teenager and you're going through the growing pains that all of us went through at that age, and these social media platforms are watching our every single move, what every parent knows is that the platforms will increasingly send our kids stuff that will make them feel even worse about themselves and about the world around them, to the point where in extreme cases, we've had all across the country and right here in New Jersey, young people taking their own lives because of the garbage that is fed to them by these social media algorithms. And so I don't think we're going to get out of this crisis just by playing defense against whatever Washington or Trump or politicians we don't like are doing on a daily basis. I think we've got to address this fundamental root cause. And what we're seeing today from you, Mikie, is, I think, unquestionably the most thoughtful and comprehensive plan to address this problem that we've seen, that I've seen from any elected official, from any candidate running for office at any level in this country. And so for me, in a governor's race, that's super important, because it's going to be, along with Virginia, New Jersey is going to have the first voice in responding to what's happening in this country post-Trump's election. For me, it is a strong and convincing reason to endorse you in this race, despite the fact there are a lot of other great Democrats running who are friends of mine, who I know very well, who I've worked with. I think this makes you stand out as the candidate who's right for this particular moment. So thank you for doing it. I hope everybody has a chance to look at the specifics of the plan. It deals with with everything from how to hold these big tech companies and billionaires accountable legally, which has been really hard. Parents of kids who've committed suicide and harmed themselves, police officers, victims of terrorism, have all tried to sue Facebook and Google and TikTok and Twitter. It's been hard because laws that protect these companies from lawsuits, that legal landscape, I think, is changing, and I think we can do something to empower victims in New Jersey. You talk about the importance of privacy and enabling every single one of us with a single click of the button to be able to delete all the data that data brokers and these companies collect on us and use against us. You've talked about doing in New Jersey what the Congress has still failed to do, to pass legislation specifically aimed at protecting children online. And you've talked about some of the new challenges posed by artificial intelligence, which are going to make potentially all of these problems worse, including the very logical, common sense proposal that anything out there that's generated by AI should be labeled as AI, so that we don't have deep fakes, so that we know exactly, so we know what we're looking at is not real. There's a lot more to the plan, and I hope you guys will take a look at it. The final thing I will say is that everything that Mikie has put out in this plan can be done by states. It can be done by New Jersey. So if Congress won't act, which it won't in this Congress, if the president won't act, and obviously Trump and Musk are not going to do anything about this, New Jersey, ideally in coalition with other states with responsible governors, can do this stuff and form a blue wall of states standing up to the craziness and insanity that are making all of us anxious about America right now. So huge congratulations to you for doing this, Mikie. I look forward to supporting you in this race, and more important, to working with you and your governor to put all of this into place to protect our democracy and protect our kids. Over to you.
Well, thank you, Tom, so much. And thank you for your support. And thank you. You know, these are conversations we have had for many years now, both with our concerns about kids online, our concerns about the extremism and radicalization of people throughout the country from different online platforms. So to have you coming out in support, I really do appreciate that. And I appreciate your long work in this area and your continued work in this area, because it's going to take all of us together. Ben, thank you. I just want to commend you for making such an adult and mature decision. I will be talking to my own children about that. And I will especially encourage them, because I know you told someone earlier that it helped you get better at lacrosse. So maybe that will encourage some of my children to make some similar decisions. But, we're living in this world of rapidly changing technology. And so many of us feel as if, we're trying to help manage our children's online access and what they're seeing online. And, we keep being told as parents, oh, you have these opportunities and you can take advantage of this to set different parameters for your children. But I have to tell you, after years of trying to do this and trying to keep up and feeling really incredibly guilty about not doing the best, I think I can on this, it just becomes a full-time job to try to protect your child online. And it is at a point where we really need to make sure that we are doing better by our kids. And this is going to take a lot more than simply parents trying to help monitor their kids' online behavior. That ship has sailed, especially I think after COVID, when so much of the schooling of our children, so much of the different stuff even today that my children do to help review different math problems or help review languages, et cetera, is online. So we need to make sure that what is happening online on these social media platforms, that our children are better protected. And we know this is this is something that, quite frankly, it's not just, Tom and I here in violent agreement. The United States Senate basically passed some measures to protect children, 91-3, I believe. And then it came to a screeching halt in the House of Representatives as we saw big tech really get to Republican leadership, spend millions of dollars in really backing them off protecting our kids. And that's what we're seeing right now from the federal government. So I'm continuing to fight the fight. I will continue to fight the fight. I know there are allies on the Hill, but the fact that these billionaires are forcing social media to become just platforms for hate is really offensive to me. And that's why, as governor, I am going to make sure that our state is on the leading edge of ensuring our kids are safe online, ensuring that we understand better what the algorithms are and can protect people from the most harmful ones. We know Meta, for example, has carved out the LGBTQ community from its content moderation policies to specifically allow them to be targets of hate speech. And we already know that the rate of suicide among our children has risen dramatically, and we know it's 4 times the amount of in the LGBTQ community. So we've got to do better. Twitter has had a 50% increase in hate speech after dramatically changing its moderation policies under Elon Musk. So today, that's why I'm unveiling the New Jersey Online Safety Agenda, my plan for keeping New Jerseyans safe as governor. So as Trump and Musk and other social media platform CEOs unravel what few guardrails we do have online, it's time for states like New Jersey to go on the offense. I'm a mom of 4. My youngest is 13 and my oldest is 19. So again, I can tell you that we are failing our children when it comes to online safety. These platforms are built to be addictive, to rewire the brains of young people, to keep them logged on. So it's a public health crisis. I've gone over some of the suicide numbers. Among young people, it's increased by 62% from 2007 to 2021. We know that when kids spend over 5 hours online, they're almost half as likely to experience depression and anxiety. It's not only hurting our kids, it's hurting our democracy. It's boosting the political extremes. So as governor, I would require big tech to prioritize kids' health and safety in their algorithms and on their platforms. For example, I'll make sure they're not promoting self-harm or eating disorders, and I'll crack down on companies employing deceptive design tactics to trick our kids into doing things they don't want to be doing. I'd make companies put warning labels as suggested by the Surgeon General on their apps, like we do with cigarettes and alcohol products, taking cell phones out of the classrooms, developing public information and awareness campaigns for our kids and their parents, so we can create a social media addiction observatory within higher education to develop recommendations on the harmful impacts. So the idea that we don't even know how this is impacting our kids' brains right now, as toddlers are, we've all seen toddlers just addicted to their screens. We know social media is harmful to our democracy. It's designed to generate bias and outrage, fuel misinformation, and even drive people to violence. We've seen careless CEOs like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg make this problem worse. So throwing up their hands as if they can't do anything about it. This agenda would fight extremism and hold companies liable for algorithms that amplify extremist and terrorist content, require companies to be transparent about how they design and apply algorithms, and reinvest in local journalism so New Jerseyans can stay informed without social media. I'll go after scammers ripping off our veterans and our seniors online. Just last year, New Jerseyans reported losing more than $250 million to scams. I'll send my attorney general after any social media company that hosts scams on its platforms. Require social media companies to screen advertisers so there's a real human responsible for the ads, and empower New Jerseyans to control their personal data. And finally, I'll fight to ensure that AI serves and empowers people, not just those who want to profit from it. I'll do that with legislation and safeguards against deepfake pornography. Recently, we've had kids subjected to deepfake pornography as young as 14 years old. Imagine that. So this has to end. The technology needs to be developed and used responsibly. This is an area where New Jersey can and should lead the country. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take a different kind of leader. I've been working hard and we've had some successes in Congress. The tough part is how many people agree with this and believe it. How many times parents come to me and say, what can we do to keep our kids safe online? I need help. I can't do it alone. This is the legislation. This is the leadership that is going to help bring us together as we protect our kids. So thanks so much, Tom. I really do appreciate your time today. So without further ado, I'll turn it back over to you and we can get into a discussion.
Well, thank you. You mentioned parents. Look, I would guess 99% of parents would agree that this has got to be done. This is a really great example of how Washington breaks down sometimes when you have something that doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. If you're a parent of a teen in this country, you know that this is a problem and you want your leaders to do something about it. And when we talk about the impact on democracy, then you're getting into more controversial stuff, right? Because no one wants to admit that they've been misinformed. But I think from our different partisan points of view, most people would agree there's too much hate, there's too much division, that we ought to be arguing from the same set of facts, even if we disagree with each other. And so I think this is stuff that a lot of people will rally around because it's just common sense. So you mentioned the bill that passed the Senate and that's frozen in the House. That's COSA, right? The Kids Online Safety Act. Right. Mm-hmm. And it mandates this age-appropriate design code. You talked a little bit about that and say maybe a little bit more. And basically just to confirm, what you're proposing is to pass a state version of COSA. Which and if we did that, California did it, right? It's as good as Congress doing it as far as the impact.
Right. I think we can start, and I actually think it could be better because we here in the States will start from the ground up, working with families, working with children. That's why I love the idea of the center at forming a New Jersey institution to study this, much like we did with gun safety, to see the impact it has on youth. There's just so much right now we don't even know. And so when I see, and believe me, I get it. I mean, as a busy mom of 4 kids, if you could just get your child to give you a minute to take a shower, get the dishes done, just get out the door, It was a godsend. So I know I would be right there handing my child an iPad to just be like, 5 minutes. I just need 5 minutes until we can get out the door. And yet we have no idea what this is doing to their brains. We know it's rewiring their brains for addiction. I can tell you, as kids get older, it's leading to more anxiety. It's leading to more depression. I can tell you, as kids get a lot older, become adults, it's leading to shorter attention span. It's leading to extremism. It's leading to, a lot of, I think, people not having engagement with each other and really getting all their information online and being pushed to more and more extreme outlets. So that's why we have these age appropriate design codes, because then you can, as a parent, understand, first of all, what is age appropriate for my kid? What is it doing to their brain? And then you can also make sure that as they go online as a young person, they're not being directed through these toxic algorithms to the most extreme content, to things like substance abuse, eating disorders. I mean, if you saw the Senate testimony and you saw what I think was a young man who died by suicide, what he was looking at before he died, I mean, it's traumatizing. As a mom, it's traumatizing. And to think that our kids are being exposed to all this time and again, and we don't have insight and we don't have transparency into these algorithms to understand where they are driving us to, why. I mean, that's something I want as an adult, much less if somebody's feeding information like this to my children. And so we would just ask for reasonable contact, just saying, you need to protect people in a reasonable way. You need to stop these things that are driving kids to dangerous places, to do self-harm. And again, like you said, the age appropriate design code is sort of the linchpin of all of this.
Yeah. So look, I'm convinced there's a different way to do social media. Like the root cause of all of this is that these algorithms are designed to basically just to make us spend more time on the platforms. Because the more time we spend on Instagram, on TikTok, the more ads we see, the more money they make, right? It makes sense from a business perspective. But what they've learned, unfortunately, human nature being what it is that what makes us spend more time on the platforms isn't necessarily what makes us happy, what makes us healthy. Often it's negative stuff that we obsess about, something that we're afraid of, somebody that we hate. Maybe that somebody we hate is ourselves, right? It makes us feel even worse about ourselves. But if you design the algorithm differently, if you actually ask teenagers as they're using a platform, is this content good for you? Is it good for your community? Is it good for the world? And you ask them even just to click that. There have been experiments done. And then you design a platform to give them more of what they themselves consciously say is good for them. You end up with a totally different and much better experience. And the only drawback is that Facebook makes 1% less money. I don't care. I'd rather have a healthy democracy and healthy kids. So that's where government needs to come in. And then speaking of adults, one of the things that I think is kind of sad, crazy, but also maybe funny is watching what's happened to Elon Musk since he got addicted to his own platform, right? I mean, the guy was maybe always a weirdo, but he wasn't a fascist necessarily 4 years ago. And then you can actually see in real time him going down these rabbit holes created by his own algorithm, his own platform. And now he's dismantling Social Security and USAID and just decimating the most successful experiment in democratic government that the world has seen. Until last week, when reality bit him and these tariffs come into place and his stock price goes way down. And suddenly he's all over Twitter attacking people in his own administration for spreading disinformation and lies. Did you notice that? When he went after Peter Navarro and said, no, this is a falsehood, which you're putting out there. And I'm like,
yeah, fascinating. Right, right. When he took down much of the verifications and stuff like that. And I think a lot of what you said, Tom, was really interesting. It struck me as we were looking into TikTok that the parent company ByteDance in China had very different protections for Chinese children and
Huh.
children in China than it does for US children. To your point, to make sure that it is a different experience, that it promotes things that are, grow self-esteem. They have limitations on how long a child can be on it. And they're the ones with the algorithms.
Mhm.
The Chinese Communist Party has the algorithms and they know what it's doing. And they are making these decisions that are very different from what they are pushing out here in the United States. And I agree. I mean, I don't, I think people enjoy a lot of things online. I like the funny dances, right? I shouldn't admit that. People are going to give me hate mail. But, I like watching my kids do the funny dances. It cracks me up. We'll be at a wedding or bar mitzvah and they're doing some funny, crazy TikTok dance, like fun, right? But at the same time, the problem here is beyond just that there is content online that we don't like. The problem here is that people are being driven to that content, that there are algorithms that are driving you down that path. And so it's bad enough when it happens to adults and you sort of traced what's happening to Elon Musk, but it's worse when your child is susceptible. And here you are as a parent trying to make sure, because normally, historically, when your child had access to controversial content, you would be somewhat aware of it and you could talk to them about it. You would know what they were seeing and reading, and you could talk to them and have a discussion and say, look, I know you're reading this and that has some, ideals that are this. I don't agree with that. And here's why, and have a conversation. But they're online. It just, you don't oversee it. And the people that are basically driving your kids to this are these algorithms that are overseen by people that are just trying to drive clicks and views, and that's often helped by rage, and it really imperils young people. So I think that's what is so upsetting about this is that social media is driving people to this place. It's not just presenting different ideas or information. It is driving people to the most extreme hateful places.
Yeah. So, that's why I think it's important for both of us to emphasize this. We're not talking about freedom of speech here, right? I mean, we're talking about the difference between freedom of speech and freedom of reach. Like, you have a right to post anything online, even stuff that is horrible and hateful and dishonest. First Amendment protects everything. But like in the old world, you could write anything you want on a piece of paper, but you didn't have a right to take that piece of paper to Random House and say, you are now obliged to publish 100,000 copies of this and deliver it to every bookstore in the country and give it in particular to people who are susceptible to this crazy idea that I've written down on the piece of paper, right? So, we should be really clear. This is about, just as you say, the delivery system, not the ideas, good or bad, that people post online, which we're not going to mess with and we shouldn't be messing with.
Yeah, I guess that is the other part of this, the lack of transparency to any of these algorithms.
Mhm.
The fact that there isn't, a requirement for age appropriate design code. So your 6-year-old could be being driven down some very dark places. We've seen some, the self-esteem issues that we're seeing, especially with teenage girls being driven by some of these algorithms. The fact that they've not been studied. And I'll tell you, when I think the canary in the coal mine for me was years ago, I was in the Bay Area. And in the Bay Area, a lot of these tech executives were sending their children
Mhm.
to schools that had no screens. They had, chalkboards and books. And I found it so interesting. And this was the time when in many other places, including in New Jersey, we were encouraging smart boards and iPads and computers in the classroom, and they were going the opposite direction. And as I look back on that, and this was probably 2018 timeframe or so, as I look back on that, I I think it was because many of them understood what these algorithms did to the brain because they were studying how to get more clicks, how to get people more engaged, how to keep eyes on screens, and they wanted to protect their children from that.
Yep.
And so as we've come to this place, we need to do more. We need to make sure that we're protecting our kids. I really, really, the thought that you wouldn't take cell phones out of classrooms. And I understand if you have concerns about active shooters or safety concerns, you could see a world, there are people that put them in bags on the door as kids come in, and that's fine. But I am telling you to try to ask most teenagers to ignore their phone when it is sitting right next to them and pay attention in class. You are just fighting a losing battle. And I think we see so many teachers when you talk to them about the difference it makes when they don't have phones in classrooms, how different the conversation is, how different it is of student engagement. So I loved when Ben said he got a flip phone. I would love to see, sort of, students turn off their phones for hours during the day, but even after school, saying, look, from here to here, this is going to be the time when, my friends and I kind of hang out. I'm going to really pitch this hard to my kids, and they're totally going to ignore me, but I love this idea. So I think it's, great to really try to wean them from this constant addiction to their phones and to their screens and to to online.
So here's the $1 million question. Would you allow a flip phone exception to the ban on phones in schools? You don't have to answer right now, but
I would allow a flip phone exception. I think
Right.
the problem is the screens. If there are parents, because my daughter had an in-doc period at her school where she couldn't have her phone, and I realized that I really I'm not just a helicopter pilot, I'm a helicopter mom. So it was driving me crazy because she could only be on her phone for an hour on Sunday to talk to me. And it was driving me insane. So I get that, we are part of the anxiety culture. So if parents feel much better, if there are issues that they want to make sure their child has the ability to call them, I get that. But a flip phone, I think, is different from the smartphones, which are really creating so many of the problems.
Let me just bring up, if we have a few more moments, another piece of this that you're addressing in a smart way, I think, and that's the data that these companies collect on us. There would be no algorithms without data, right? Because they need to know about everything we're doing, everything we're looking at online, to be able to figure out what information to feed us. And a lot of this data is now housed in or collected by data brokers, which scoop up just vast amounts of personal data on everybody in the world, and then they sell it. So we have no idea where it's going. And there are really dystopian ways in which that data can be used at a time when we're worried about creeping authoritarianism in America. Let me give you one example. In states that have banned abortion, if those states really want to prevent women from getting that procedure, or even leaving the state to get that procedure, they could purchase data from data brokers on women in their state who may be looking at websites, health oriented websites that are going to tell them what they can do, and then use that to go after those women. And you can think of many other possible examples. So what you're proposing here is a version, I think, of legislation that's been introduced in the Congress called the Delete Act, which would allow any of us to go on a website and see what, this is technically possible, see what all the data brokers have on us. And if we don't like it, with one button, you could just delete all of it. So just to be clear, that's what you're proposing for New Jersey, right? That at least for New Jersey citizens, we would have that ability. Is that correct?
That's right. And I love this portion of it because so many people, they have cookies, and they put their cookies data on, and you're supposed to read through. And how many of us, and I'm guilty, are in a hurry. I'm desperately trying to sign my kid up for soccer for the season. And I know if I don't do it now, it's just not going to happen. And so I'm just like, click, click, yes, accept all, accept all, accept all. This would be where you would see the data and be able to say, nope, and just, nope, no more, don't collect that on me. And I think, that would really, I think, enable us to have far more authority over our privacy data. And I think would breed this expectation of privacy that we should all have. We should all be able to have this expectation of privacy. And this stands in sharp contrast to, I think, quite frankly, what other groups like the Chinese Communist Party are developing as a surveillance expectation so that they will be able to control the population. I think in the United States, for many obvious reasons, having an expectation of data privacy is something that we should promote as we move into the future. Because I agree with you, Tom. I think this is, all of these tech platforms, social media, AI offer so much that we could have into the future, whether it's individualized learning plans for people who are falling behind in school, or help for some of the rote data to collate them so government services can serve you better and you can have a much better experience at the MBC, for example. I mean, in so many different ways, this could be really a game changer and help people live their lives better. But as we know, that's going to take work on the front end now. That's going to take thoughtful people coming forward and saying, look, this is harming our kids. This is how we make the online experience better. Or this data is being sold to data brokers. And this is why, so much data theft goes on. And people in New Jersey are losing $250 million a year to scams. Like, how are we protecting people better so that people have more autonomy over their online experience and can be safer at protecting themselves and their children online?
But shouldn't we just trust Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk to protect us? I mean, wouldn't that be enough?
Tom.
Political
Yes, yeah. Why wouldn't we? I think we've tried that route. We've really tried to have the social media platforms do better, and some of them really engaged in this. And really tried to do that and immediately started losing market share, for example, recently to TikTok, because TikTok has done quite the opposite. And so when you would see a company that was trying to do better and do better algorithms and have better online content and not have some of the extremism or the hate speech, et cetera, online, you would see them immediately losing market share to platforms like TikTok that decided to go wholeheartedly into whatever it takes to get people on their platform. And so that's why this is important. Yep. That's why this creates the ability for platforms to do the right thing. And without it, I just don't think there's an ability of these platforms to do some of this work.
No, that's a really good point. Like, even if they wanted to do the right thing, the market pressures would make it impossible unless there's a level set of rules for everybody. And that's where government comes in. And, the other thing that's happened in the last couple of years is that we had some threat of legislation 3 or 4 years ago. There were hearings, and there was a Facebook whistleblower, remember, who, revealed all of this stuff about how Facebook knew the harm it was causing and wasn't doing enough about it. So they actually ramped up some of their internal protections, just as you said, content moderation, and they hired a lot more people to monitor the stuff. And once they realized Congress was unlikely to act and then Trump gets elected, there's no pressure from the regulators, but there's pressure from the Chinese platform. And as you pointed out before, like, the CCP knows exactly the harm it's causing to our kids and to our society, and they like it. So this is a way to fight back against all of that. And in the next 2 years, we got to count on the states to lead the way, to be the laboratories. And I'm hoping you're in a position where you'll be able to do this. Our friend Abby Spanberger in Virginia, who I know cares a lot about this as well. Other Democratic governors across the country. California's already done some stuff, not as much as what you're proposing. We would still be the leaders. I think together it would just be an awesome force and give our presidential candidate in 28 something really popular to run on, positive and popular.
Well, Tom, I think that's exactly right. I think it's going to be strong Democratic governors who can really lead the way and provide a different vision from what we see coming from Washington. I think we can really lead from the ground up, listening to people on the ground about those everyday issues that, as I say, kind of what's that last thing keeping you up at night? I know I've had those nights where my mind feels like a hamster wheel just going around and around about some problem that I'm so concerned about. And when it comes to, your kids, that's usually the one that's keeping you up all night, is how can I do better by my kids? And so giving parents the ability to make sure that they have, more help, more support. I mean, I got to tell you, as governor, that's a key goal of mine, whether it's the child tax credit or making sure parents have more support online. Helping you protect and help your family is really, really important to me, because I feel right now like a lot of us are just sort of, left out to dry as you're trying to navigate some of these new technologies. It's not enough to just tell parents, hey, you've just got to really make sure, you're watching your kid online. That is simply not an option, especially when your child goes to school or is at a sports game with a smartphone. That's just not fair to parents. I think we have to do better by children in this nation. And that's why, as governor, I would do just that. And I really want to thank you, because you've always been a great thought partner in so many different issues over the years, and certainly in this kind of cutting edge area of technology and how we make it a better experience, how we embrace technology, and do so in a way that's going to make sure we're protecting our kids, our democracy, and really growing the future here in New Jersey. So thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mikie. Good luck with this. See you around.
Have a great one. Talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.